Hello, welcome back to Through the Wire, where we apply theories to real life. Michael and Patrick here, bringing you back a new episode. If you've been listening to previous episodes, you know that we've been talking about narrative arcs and how they can be applied to different situations and people. Last week we talked about Madam C.J. Walker and her narrative arc, Rags to Riches. This week's episode, we're going to be talking about Elon Musk and how he fits into the confines of one of Vonnegut's shapes of stories.
The Vonnegut story arc we are going to be talking about today is Cinderella. We all know the story. Cinderella is a beautiful young lady whose mother died when she was young. As a result, she must live with her stepmother and two stepsisters, who make her cook, clean, sew all day. When the palace is having a ball, a fairy godmother comes to Cinderella and gives her a dress, shoes, and a horse-drawn carriage to ride to the ball. However, the fairy godmother's spell will only last until midnight. At the ball, she dances with the prince, but their dance is cut short when the clock strikes midnight. When she runs from the palace all the way back to her stepmother's house, she leaves her shoe in the process. The prince then scours the land to find Cinderella by seeing if the shoe she left fits any lady who tries it. Eventually, Cinderella gets a chance to try on the shoe, and everyone lives happily ever after. The arc of the story goes as the following: rise, fall, and rise. This is the arc we will follow today.
Without further ado, let's get into the story of how Elon Musk saved both SpaceX and Tesla from bankruptcy at the same time. Exposition. Musk was born on June 28, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa. His mother, May Musk, was a Canadian model, and his father, Errol Musk, was a wealthy South African engineer. As a child, from Biography.com, states that he was so lost in his daydreams that his parents took him to a doctor in order to test his hearing. Growing up, Musk showed amazing talent in the areas of science and technology. At the age of 12, he had created his own game called Blaster and had sold it for $500. By age 17, in 1989, Musk moved to Canada in order to attend Queen's University and subsequently avoid mandatory service of the South African military. Then, in 1992, Musk left Canada to study business and physics at the University of Pennsylvania. He graduated with an undergraduate degree in economics and stayed for a second bachelor's and the degree of physics. After leaving Penn, Musk moved to Stanford University in California to pursue a PhD in physics. However, he dropped out of Stanford just 2 days after to pursue the boom of the internet. This is where the arc begins with its first rise.
Musk, with the help of his brother Kimball Musk, created Zip2 in 1995, which he later sold for $307 million. Following the success of Zip2 in 1999, with the help of his brother again, Elon Musk created X.com, later renamed to PayPal. In October 2002, Musk earned his first billion when PayPal was acquired by eBay for $1.5 billion in stock. Before the sale, Musk owned 11% of PayPal's stock. With a cool couple $100 million at his disposal, instead of retiring, he decided to continue pressing into one of three arenas he often cited as most critical to humanity's future: the internet, sustainable transportation, and establishing a human colony on other worlds. A quote on Musk from Vice best describes his future ideas for space travel. Disappointed that NASA had zero plans for a manned Mars mission, Musk took it as a sign that America had lost its will to explore space, so he devised a philanthropic plan to stir public excitement, spark innovation, and hopefully secure NASA additional funds the way the lunar landings did in the 60s. From this, Musk came up with the idea of sending a greenhouse to Mars called Mars-OSIS. The next step, as any logical person would do, was to go to Russia and look at old ICBMs to purchase his launch vehicle. After a few trips, the negotiations fell through as Elon only wanted to spend $4 million, while the Russians wanted $8 million. On his flight home, Musk decided to calculate the cost of the rocket. He found that only 3% of the total cost the Russians wanted for the rocket were from raw materials. After this discovery in 2002 is when SpaceX was born. The next year, Tesla Motors was founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. This company piqued Musk's interest as it was one of the three areas he often cited. In 2004, Musk invested $30 million into Tesla. As a result, he became the chairman of the company. This is where the first fall comes.
For SpaceX and Tesla, Musk wasted no time in hiring the best that he could. His original plan for SpaceX was to have a rocket ready by November 2003, only 18 months after the company had started. Of course, that never happened, and his first launch came later in March 2006. However, his first launch of the Falcon 1 was a disaster and crashed only 43 seconds after launch. Around the same time, in 2006, Tesla unveiled the Roadster, an electric sports car unlike anything of its time. The Roadster had 100 pre-orders on its first day. However, like the Falcon 1, it was plagued with delays. The CEO at the time, Martin Eberhard, was promising unrealistic goals and wanted to release the Roadster in early 2007. But due to production issues, the Roadster was continually delayed. As a result of Martin's mismanagement, he was ousted from the company he had created. On Forbes' article titled Why Martin Eberhard Was Forced Out of Tesla Motors, they said, "Fair or not, Musk lost confidence in Eberhard for being late, over budget, and inexperienced. Investors know crap happens, but they have to believe the CEO is doing the best job possible when it does. This wasn't the case here. Musk realized as the largest funder of Tesla, something had to be done, otherwise it would run off a cliff and die." End quote. As a result of Martin being canned, this left Musk as the CEO of Tesla. As the CEO of both Tesla and SpaceX, the stress began to pile up. For both companies, things began to get worse. In 2007 and in 2008, SpaceX failed its only two launches, and at Tesla, Musk had to begin to clean up Martin's mess. As a result, both companies began to go under and were running out of money. Musk had already invested $100 million into SpaceX and $70 million into Tesla. Tesla in late October of 2007 only had $9 million in reserves to run the company, and SpaceX had little more. Musk had to choose between saving one of the companies or risking it all by trying to save both. Leading up to September 2008, SpaceX's fourth mission was quickly approaching. The entire fate of the company was riding on this mission, and no other result than success was needed. Musk's hard work and determination paid off as the mission was a complete success, reaching orbit with no issues. ScienceAlert.com quoted him saying, "I messed up the first three launches. The first three launches failed. Fortunately, the fourth launch, that was the last money that we had, the fourth launch worked, or that would have been it for SpaceX. But fate liked us that day." Despite the successful launch, the fate of SpaceX was still in limbo, as this was the only successful launch of the company and no contracts had been offered to them. Just when things couldn't get worse, they did. In 2008, the housing market collapsed, causing a worldwide recession. Musk was scrambling to get funding for both companies. This is where Musk's second rise comes.
To save Tesla, Musk liquidated his remaining assets. With the help of funding from investors and from the German car company Daimler, he was able to raise $90 million to save Tesla from going bankrupt. At this point in time, it seems that only Tesla was going to make it. Then on December 23rd, Musk received a call from NASA. They offered Musk a $1.6 billion contract to resupply the ISS. Musk had done the impossible. He saved two companies from going bankrupt with hard work, determination, and a bit of luck, all while going through the world's greatest economic recession.
In later interviews, he remembers the days leading up to Christmas in harrowing detail.
But I remember waking up on the Sunday before Christmas in 2008 and thinking, like, damn, this is the closest I've ever gotten. And it was looking pretty grim because at that point, even though the fourth launch of SpaceX had succeeded, we were still running out of money because we had We had 3 failures and only 1 success. Still not enough. And then the financing round for Tesla had not closed. And we had only 2 days, maybe two, I think it was like 2 or 3 days maybe, to close it before Christmas. So I was like, man, this could be a really bad end of the year. Maybe both companies will fail.
Conclusion. Narrative arcs are critical to any story. They are a backbone by providing a clear beginning, middle, and end of the story. By putting one of Vonnegut's narrative arcs into a clear and interesting story, I hope you, the viewer, learned a little today. Thank you for listening, and tune in next week for a new episode of Through the Wire. Signing off.